Very superstitious. Writings on the wall. Ladder's about to fall. 13-month-old baby broke the looking glass. 7 years of bad luck. The good things in your past. Ooh, what are some of the superstitions you could think of? Find out on today's episode. Two superstitious chaps and many cultures. Stay tuned. Welcome, everybody. Episode 114 to Chaps Many Cultures, the program live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn about the culture of business and the business of culture and the scaring myths and beliefs of superstitions on today's episode. With me, as always, today, the one, the only Aussie that you should know, Mr. Parry. Man, I never get used to this pointing in the wrong direction.
How are you? I'm being careful here not to step on a crack, so I'm just
make sure that the windows are not facing each other, the mirrors are not facing each other, right?
That's right. Yep.
That would be weird.
Absolutely. Yes, welcome. Superstitions, beliefs, strange or unstrange, This is a great topic. I love this. These are things that come up with lots of people around the world, doesn't it?
Oh, and I typically ruffle feathers or raise eyebrows when in company and I bring up a superstition that is so deeply ingrained in my behavior that when I see people behave in the wrong way, that my alarms go, no, you can't do this. And they're like, do what? Well, I do this. Why not? Well, because bad luck or death of the family or whatever. And then as we unpack it and decode it, like, you're nuts. And I say, yeah, I am. And this is simply what I grew up with. So we want to hear from you as you're watching this, either live or the recording. What are some of the superstitions you find in your culture, in your family, maybe even? So I'm going to start out with one that I typically run into when there is adult beverages involved with people around me. So I come from Germany, as most of you should know by now. And when we clink glasses, so forgive me, this is my coffee glass. It's already empty, so I have my shot. That's why I'm so excited. And this is my water glass. I should refill it. So if we're clinking glasses like this to do a cheers, we have this habit, or we have this superstition in Germany that the people doing that need to lock eyes. They need to look at each other as they're clinking the glasses. Because if you don't, ooh. Any idea, Brett, what would happen if I don't?
Well, I'm cheating because I think this is the very first one that you told me about maybe the first time we had the joy and pleasure of clinking glasses together in person. This is one, yes. So I'm just going to bring in our first guest here, Patricia. They might be clinking glasses,
Yes.
Over brunch. What's the traditional the champagne and orange juice over brunch? I hope maybe you're having a few of those, Patricia.
Yes, there we go. So
tell us what was that was one of the things you said. Now, stop! Don't do that. Wait, you said, and what was it?
This is so weird because it's totally irrational, right? All of these, or most of these superstitions, are completely bogus, and yet we like to hold on to them. So in my culture, if we clink glasses and don't look at each other, that means you're going to have 7 years of bad sex. Now, while this may not be PG, the funny thing is that I once had an American ask me, "Oh, you mean sex with me?" I said, no, in general. So it is. Nobody wants that again, right? So keep in mind as you clink glasses, look at the person in the eye. Now, this will not work in cultures where direct face-to-face eye contact may be a sign of disrespect. So be mindful of those superstitions, right? And it's only a little bit tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
So what can you think of from your culture, Brett?
In Australia, we don't tend to have, I mean, I can really put my mind or my finger on one particular, except for the, those ones that are kind of a big ones. They seem to be around the world, as I said, stepping on a crack. Step on a crack, break your mother's back, And I've always been cognizant of when I'm stepping and walking down a sidewalk, of walking between the cracks. I do this just inherently, but I don't even know why I do it. It just seems to be, sometimes it's inconvenient because those damn cracks are a funny distance apart, and you gotta
you must have seen too. There's this movie, As Good as It Gets, with Jack Nicholson, who does not step on any of the cracks of the floor tiles, right? Because he thinks that right. Yeah. So part of that. Also, Patricia reminds us that the Kiroyal would be the brunch drink of choice, of course, not with orange juice, but with cassis, I believe, and real champagne, not just prosecco. And in France, you must look each other in the eyes as well. So it's not a uniquely German tradition. So I've heard that from many Europeans. So I can't when clinking. I mentioned it earlier. The mirrors hanging on opposing walls and basically creating a invisible illusion, right? Not invisible, infinity illusion. I think Mexico and many other Latino cultures do not like to do that. Or, I think of when I was younger, I used to smoke. I broke that habit. And yet lighting a cigarette on a candle, bad. Because apparently if you do that, a sailor will die. I have no idea who makes up this nonsense, but people carry it on for a generation. I think this is an old lore, right?
Yeah. I think I came across a lot more superstitions when I discovered the Polish community. It's obviously a longer history there, so it goes back to the Dark Ages and into things like buying shoes for the people you love. And there's a direct reason there. If you buy shoes and you give them to them as a gift, that means they're going to walk away. So nobody will buy me shoes in Poland. I've got to buy my own damn shoes. Right. There's these are negative, right? These are things that are going to cause harm, and these have some deep-rooted beliefs in people's psyches. There's also the positive superstitions. It's like I would argue that feng shui is not a guard against bad luck. It's actually creating good luck. It's a creator of possibility. It's a creator of a space that is conducive to a good flow, good life flow, and things like this. So there's kind of like that retribution aspect of it, that something's going to happen, or there is a possibility. That just came to mind. I thought, well, when people have talked about feng shui, that's not really through retribution. It's about the possibility of having good energy, bringing good energy.
Inviting the energy to flow the way you want it intentionally, right? And I think a lot of these superstitions are hangovers or leftovers from a time when humanity relied on scientific evidence and rational thought, right? So it hasn't been that long, maybe, I don't know, 300-400 years when humankind began relying on evidence-based observations in order to guide our decision making. And before that, a lot of our behavioral quirks were based on beliefs that were not always founded in reality or in something that was explicable. It was something that was referred to the divine or the spirits or ghosts or whatever. Patricia says she does not know where I get it from, but I cover my mirrors when I leave my house for a long time. Interesting.
Yeah, I actually think I've heard of people say that before. It's an interesting one. It'd be interesting to see where that comes from. Yeah, that's a good one.
Patricia, you might be protecting the vampires that live in your house, so while you're gone, they don't accidentally look into the mirrors and perish by doing so. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, that's great.
Now,
but okay, so let's get to the serious part of this, and I really bring this up for people that are moving to another country where there might be a certain set of suspicions that really do have an impact on possibly even things like gift giving. Colors of flowers in certain cultures where we give flowers ubiquitously here. The more colorful, the more bright, the better. And yet some flowers in some cultures are only used for funerals. So therefore giving them indicates that, there's a death. And do we then say, and we're joking, of course, when we take a bit of a dig at these things, they are completely, to say they're completely nuts and they're completely, irrational. But they are so deeply embedded in people's souls and their practices that even just to be nice and, you can be skeptical of them and you can completely not believe in them yourself, but understanding the impact that just going against it. So I'm going to prove to these people that this is not true. So therefore I'm going to break the rule. And therefore, that just a little bit of cultural competence in that goes a long way to kind of making sure that the people you're engaging with through their superstitions, that you're not kind of changing or causing offense. And of course, your first impression is everything for everybody in the world. And I just think it's always good to know that, be respectful of it anyway, of course,
And even if we are ourselves rational enough to not judge somebody based on these superstitious beliefs, I notice that subconsciously it doesn't matter to me. So and I would consider myself to be a fairly rational person. Last week was my birthday, and people in my country do not say happy birthday before the actual day. So it's considered to be bad luck if you say happy birthday prematurely. Yet in the United States, where I currently live, I've heard talk about the birthday week, the birthday month. And while that's a linguistic violation of logic, it's called birthday, not birth week. And I hope for all of my wishes I can have on your mother, I hope it didn't take her a week to get you out of the birth canal. It's birthday. So when people wish you happy birthday prematurely, in my culture, that's bad luck. And even though my rational mind says, okay, they probably didn't know this, but when they still say happy birthday before that, I still deep down I cringe a little.
Right. Yeah.
Even though my rational mind says, bollocks, forget about it, but it bothers me there for a split second, right?
Yeah. There's people that call it, it's the festival of the festival of Brett. It's the week or the month of around the holiday or the birthday. Yeah. No, that's a good thing. I didn't know that one, right? So I'm glad that. I actually called. Didn't I call you on your birthday? On your birthday, not before.
You called me on my birthday, and I was
there you go. I'm glad I was culturally competent in that way, anyway, and didn't cause offense.
And you brought the example of the flowers, right? It's either the colors, or the type of flowers, or the number of flowers. So, yes. In many countries that I've been to, they sell flowers by even numbers. So, in North America, you can buy roses by the dozen. Well, I don't know about you, but in my culture, if you give roses, that is a flower that you give a romantic interest. Right? You wouldn't, or somebody that's emotionally close to you, you wouldn't give roses for any occasion. A rose is, at least in the way I was raised, or the way I was brought up in my culture, rose is reserved to somebody with a more emotional connection, right?
Yeah.
And then when we do that, it's got to be an odd number. So I would not give my wife a dozen of roses. I will take one out and put that separately, maybe on my desk or something like that, or give it to one of my daughters. So superstitious, of course, yet a deeply ingrained behavior. I recognize, I'm buying 12 of these. Okay, I need to make sure that as I put it in a vase for my wife, that I make sure that it's not an even number.
Yeah.
She may never count. She may never count them. Doesn't matter. But subconsciously, I think of that stuff.
Yeah.
And
See,
a lot of other people.
you could give it to some random, some random lady. They're walking down the street. Someone, maybe an old lady on the street on the way home, and hand it to them. But then again, it'd be a surprise, right? That's interesting. Yes, count them, right? So nobody counts. Nobody looks at it. Nobody takes notice of it. But you do it because it's part of that embedded practice, like all culture, right? All culture is, the people like, as Seth Godin says, people like us do things like this, and these are very closely held traditions that are taught to us by our parents and our community and our society that we do or don't do, and some of those are just basic, practices, but others are rooted in beliefs. So let's see what Patricia says. Great. I'm glad I hope your meal's not going cold. Patricia.
She's typing vigorously.
Absolutely. Hard for to accept that Americans wish Merry Christmas and Happy Birthday prematurely. That's bad luck. Yeah. See, so that's interesting. We kind of maybe doing it through efficiency and go, oh, well, and especially now we've got Facebook and we've got social media where they throw up the birthdays. And we think, oh, well, I'm going to be busy Friday, so I'm going to send a birthday message and say happy birthday for Friday, Right. And it makes us seem very so good to remember somebody's birthday. Would we have done it without Facebook and social media to a lot of people? Maybe that's the case, right? And then also, that's why we buy as corporate gifts, right? This is exactly right. Now, culture and superstition play a big role. Money, places like China where money, we've already had that discussion with our good friend Anajar about the amount of money, the denomination of money, the total of money when given as a gift or a bonus. These have deeply rooted, a culture like China, it's thousands of years of those numbers and the effect of numerology on not only just the money but other things as well. Yeah.
And I think isn't it funny that we live in the 21st century, most of humanity, at least in the industrialized world or in the world that is able to watch us, what we're doing here, we are all brought up and we all live in a high-tech environment. We all live in a society, in an environment that is man-made largely and influenced by the scientific progress that we have made over generations, and yet we allow ourselves to sometimes be guided by belief systems that may or may not be rooted in logic, that may be just a little bit a leftover from those days when we couldn't explain certain phenomena and we made up an explanation that in today's world may seem a little bit outdated, and yet somehow it seems to be fun to or serve a certain purpose for us to hold on to these things that technically have totally outlived themselves.
Yeah. Well, Louis, we did the episode with Tobias yesterday where he showed how the mind can fill in things under a pretty simple suggestion. The mind can actually, yes, that exists, even though I'm not seeing it. I take your word for it. The magician does that to us. We'll take your word for it. That's there, right? The dots are there, but they're not. We're just being told they are. The brain
If you have no idea what this guy's talking about, you need to go back to the archives and watch yesterday's episode. Hint. All right. Also, a hint. Comments, questions, suggestions. Write it in here. What are some of the superstitions that you're familiar with? Maybe you can explain them. Maybe you have no explanation. Doesn't matter. What are some of the things that you have noticed in your part of the world? Maybe it's your own superstition. Maybe it's a superstition you're being confronted with as you live in a different environment. Let us know. Let our audience know. Talk amongst each other. Talk to us. Be social people.
Absolutely. Right? be social people, and I don't think there's any superstition against it. You know, is there a superstition against sharing one crazy Aussie and another crazy German talking on the internet every day? I don't think there is yet. Maybe we should start one. The superstition that if you don't do it, something's going to happen.
Yeah, like when you trim your nails after dark in India, like that, right? Don't do that either, because that is really bad luck if you trim your nails at night in India.
Is it? Wow. Didn't know that one.
I'm looking this up as we talk about it. I didn't know that either. Or, in Russia, they don't put empty bottles on the ground. Oh, I know this too. Eastern European women will not put their purses on the ground. They always do that. They hang the purses over the backrest of a chair or put them somewhere, because that's really bad financial luck if you put your purse on the ground.
Yeah. Reaching across, kissing your loved one goodbye over the threshold. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't. That's a big one. Yeah.
What else can I think of? Oh yeah, the black cat coming from left side.
Right? Absolutely, black cat. I mean, Google right now is looking at your search engine and going, yeah, this guy's gone completely nuts now.
I can't walk this back now. I mean, I already said it. If I walk it back, I would walk myself to Portugal, where walking backwards is really bad luck. That's why flip-flops were invented in Australia, because we're always walking forward. You ever tried to walk backwards in flip-flops? It's very difficult. I thought you guys call them thongs.
We call them thongs. And they're, strangely enough, the New Zealanders are very explicit about that. They call them go-aheads, because you can only go ahead. Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Also, if you've ever been to one of the big places of worship in Europe, whether you go to the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, or maybe you go to St. Peter's in Rome, or many other of these big places of worship, you'll find statues or symbols of good fortune, right? In St. Peter, there is a sitting statue, I think, of Peter himself. I think it's a bronze, and you can touch it. So if you're tall enough, you can reach out to the exposed feet of St. Peter, and his big toe on one of the feet that is protruding from the statue is really worn off. Over centuries, people have rubbed St. Peter's toes for good luck, right? Or in the Hagia Sophia, I think there's one of the columns where apparently one of the Byzantine emperors was healed from something by touching that pillar. So people ever since then try to touch that pillar. So you can stick your thumb in the hole that has been created from many, many millions of people touching at the same spot, right? Yeah. These are also anchors, right? In NLP, we call those kinesthetic, or actually full-bodied visual auditory kinesthetic anchors. You attach an experience to a unique experience to an inanimate object, in this case, that creates superstition over the course of generations.
Mm. I watched this. Well, I'll just quickly we'll talk. This is interesting. Now, I have a habit of breaking baguettes, not cutting them. I don't know where that comes from. It seemed to me, I thought it was more it's just the experience of opening that bread and hearing or feeling the crust and that kind of thing. But so a knife takes you away from that. I just love a fresh baguette. And doing that.
On a baguette or on a panino in Italy, those elongated cigar-shaped breads, I fully agree. Now, when it comes to loaves of bread, different story. How are you going to make that sandwich, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you use a knife in that case. And I was struck last night watching a documentary about Dr. Devi Shetty, who's just an amazing heart surgeon who built a hospital for heart patients in India, having made his name famously outside of India as a doctor. But then he came back to India, and they were showing how he interacts with his patients and also their relatives. And you can see a whole lot of tradition and a lot of superstition, even in the way of highly trained, you would think, so this is no this is talking about, do we just put this to people who are maybe not have education and are not aware and through their knowledge that these things don't exist? No, this is one of the most celebrated heart surgeons on the face of the planet, highly decorated in all kinds of awards, and people just look up to the guy as one of those people who have brought such good fortune and luck to his home community, right? And the way he interacts with his patients was through a lot of understanding a lot of their traditions. Anybody can turn up, Muslims, Hindus, Christians, anybody, right? He was the one who nursed Mother Teresa through her last few years and death. And and he said she had such an impact on him. So that faith touched him, and he saw the importance of the traditions of the families through caring for their loved one with superstition. So here's another point where this is a really serious topic about how do you respectfully treat the traditions and superstitions of the family, because this is one of the most impactful time of their lives when their loved ones are really under threat of dying. And so it was a great episode. It's called The Surgeon's Cut. It's a series of these. But
I've seen that announced on one of the well-known streaming networks that showed
it's on Netflix. It's great. That may be off the topic, but I'm just kind of demonstrating how important these can be for some cultures, and how to be respectful of them is the least we can do, right? We don't, it's kind of fun sometimes to even play along, right? Because, what's the harm? You don't want anything bad to happen to you.
Yeah, and that, even though, as I said earlier, even though we might be rational people most of the day, it may hit us at the core if the superstition is triggered. I have another one that I just found. In Rwanda, women typically do not eat goat meat, which is one of the dominant forms of protein, because goats have, what they have here under their chin?
Oh, yeah, the billy goat. The goatee, billy goat.
Yes. So apparently in Rwanda, women believe if they eat goat meat, they will grow facial hair, and they don't want that. So there you have it, another superstition.
Good. Well, there you go. The algorithms are going crazy on Christian's computer at the moment. He's going to get advertisements for goats,
for shaving equipment,
shaving goats.
As long as people call me the goat, I'm good.
Yeah, nail clippers that won't work after dark. These are all these. We have to invent these things, of course, so we can market them to people. All right.
So let us know about your favorite superstitions. There is no end to this. We could talk about this all day and still don't cover them all. I hope we brought some lighthearted entertainment to you on this Thursday, December 17th. This is 114.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll see you again tomorrow with a very special guest. Has been announced already, so we can actually talk about it. Patricia will join us tomorrow. So, yay!
She's gone to concentrate on her brunch, so that's
yeah. She needs to cater to her kiriyal. So let's see if she comes to tomorrow's session with a glass in hand. We better be prepared for that.
Absolutely. All right.
Thanks for tuning in. We guys see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye now.